Good morning to all of you at the OECD e-commerce conference. I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to speak to you today. Of course, I'd prefer to be there in person, as I know you will all be enjoying the hospitality provided by my friends at the Federal Trade Commission. This morning I'm going to provide some brief remarks in my role as the current President of the International Consumer Protection and Enforcement Network, which you know as ICPEN. And the main message is that accountability and trust in e-commerce cannot be delivered solely within individual jurisdictions. Accountability and trust can only be delivered through international cooperation, and I'm sure this has been one of the key messages in this conference so far. Single agencies working alone will find it harder to effectively act against conduct that is undermining consumer confidence. On the other hand, cooperation through networks such as ICPEN will help provide the basis for cross-border enforcement and will help us in our efforts to prevent havens arising from misconduct in the field of e-commerce. At the ICPEN conference in Sydney last month, we heard about some of the wonderful developments in e-commerce for consumers, but we also heard how the technological revolution in the online world has allowed scammers to effectively move from being a cottage industry to conducting industrial scale operations. If we want to give consumers confidence, we must look at ways to effectively disrupt this industrial scale activity in the area of scams. We will never eliminate all such activity, but if we can reduce the scale of scams, we can take it back to being more of a cottage industry, we will have done much to make e-commerce a safe environment for consumers. It's ambitious, but I believe it should be our goal. And it's because of the importance of international cooperation in achieving this goal that the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission has taken on the role as President of ICPEN. ICPEN provides a venue for its member organisations to build effective relationships, to facilitate information sharing and to identify best practice that can be used to enhance our efforts to increase consumer confidence, much like the OECD. There are around 40 members, and these individual ICPEN members obviously undertake a range of programs to improve e-commerce outcomes for consumers. As a network, though, I'd like to highlight several activities that we carry out in the area of e-commerce. Two in particular are ones that I'd like to focus on today. The first is our annual International Internet Sweep. This initiative targets the growth in deceptive conduct emerging in the online environment. It aims to build consumer confidence by demonstrating in quite a public way that law enforcement agencies can target and take action against sites that may be engaged in misconduct. These range from legitimate sites that may simply be providing incorrect information or inadequate information to consumers through to outright scams. The outcomes help to educate consumers, often through media attention, as well as providing targets for regulatory action. Every year, thousands of sites are swept as part of this global Internet Sweep Day, and spam messages are also reviewed and targeted. It is one way in which agencies can demonstrate that accountability for consumer safety occurs within a global context. This year, for example, we found an unauthorised site selling World Cup football tickets. As a result, ICPEN has established links with FIFA's ticketing organisation, Match Services, to share information about unauthorised and scam World Cup ticketing sites, and a coordinated global message for consumers warning about such sites will have been issued by the time you hear my speech. The second initiative I'd like to mention is our online complaint portal, econsumer.gov. Currently provided in 7 languages, this site provides consumers with tips on how to resolve their online issues, and it is also a portal to report their complaints about online transactions that involve a foreign business. It is still true that consumers will generally go to their domestic consumer protection authority to complain about problems they have encountered online. However, econsumer.gov provides another mechanisms to alert agencies to cross-border complaints. ICPEN is continuing to develop this portal. We still have work to do here, but we're looking for feedback, and I believe that Consumers International will be at this conference. They may have an interesting perspective on such a service. Ultimately, eConsumer.gov is a demonstration that as agencies, if we wish to be accountable, we can no longer rely on the excuse that complaint involves cross-jurisdictional issues. Through the thousands of complaints received each year, we receive a snapshot of current consumer e-commerce concerns. More often than not, they go to basic consumer rights. Have the goods actually been received? Can you contact the merchant? Have you been billed correctly? It won't come as a surprise to learn that the borderless nature of fraud brings with it certain enforcement challenges. However, through such activities as the sweep and eConsumer.gov, we can cooperate more effectively on enforcement issues. And indeed, I know there are many agencies at this conference who have undertaken successful enforcement action in this area. I would now like to offer a few quick comments on two of the conference agenda questions. The first, how can the capacity of government to address cross-border issues be strengthened? To enhance international cooperation, the importance of information sharing cannot be overestimated. Networks such as ISPEN need to be doing more in this area. Laws that allow effective information sharing are important, as are less formal information sharing exercises, such as sharing information around trends analysis and intelligence analysis, the sort of thing that agencies carry out on a regular basis. On this point, I also believe we have many more opportunities to effectively share information with private sector partners, and I know there are several participating in this conference. I would encourage those firms to articulate what assistance they need from government agencies that would give them greater ability and confidence to ensure the intelligence they have about fraud and misconduct in the e-commerce world. The second question goes to the areas where cross-border enforcement cooperation might be expanded. The one cautionary note I'd add here is that the breadth of issues just seems to grow every day, and there's no lack of ambition when it comes to tackling these issues. And this in one way is part of the challenge. If we spread ourselves too broadly over too many issues, we will run the risk of doing nothing well. So I would encourage anyone looking at this question to consider not only where enforcement cooperation can be expanded, but where it can make the most impact. One area, as I've mentioned, is to focus on the concept of disruption, rather than expecting formal enforcement outcomes in response to each and every problem. We have, I believe, fallen behind the criminals to some extent in thinking or in innovative ways about how we can disrupt activity online so that it has less chance of developing into an industrial scale operation of the sort that I mentioned earlier. And another potential area is to extend our work with agencies from countries that have sometimes been used as the hosts for online crime, so that we can look at what assistance can be provided to such jurisdictions. I'll close by saying that it is through such collaborative efforts that we can enhance our enforcement and regulatory work, and that we can build on our actions to help consumer confidence grow. I look forward to hearing the outcomes of the conference, and particularly the discussion arising out of this session, and I would be interested to hear of ideas and solutions where ISPEN can enhance its efforts. Best wishes to all of you for a successful and enjoyable conference.